Afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us for the Innovandi Open Challenge. Apologies, we're just a couple of minutes late. And just as we see participants joining, we welcome you to the launch of our fourth Innovation Challenge. We're broadcasting from London. So of course we say good afternoon, we say good morning as well. And we say good evening, because we know that people are joining from everywhere across the world. And hopefully you are in the right place for our Open Challenge for 2025, our fourth challenge. We have 45 minutes to go through with you with a really interesting agenda, some world-class speakers, not necessarily myself. And just to introduce me, I'm Paul Adelecki. I'm the Strategy and Communications Director for the GCCA. Looking at the agenda, we have some really interesting speakers. Thomas Guillot, the CEO, will give a formal welcome. We have an address from Karen Scrivener, who chairs one of our Innovandi platforms. We're going to hear from starters and indeed from a number of testimonials from some of the startup groups that have already participated in some of the challenges over the years. And then we've got a distinguished panel made up of startups and some of our GCCA industry members as well. So 45 minutes. Please do use the Q&A function or even the chat function to let us know your questions. We'll have a little bit of time at the end, and any questions that we don't get to, we will be able to run through and email you back subsequently. So you're all very welcome, and let me pass over to Thomas Guillot for a formal introduction. Thomas Guillot is the GCCA CEO. He joined us in 2021, and he's got a distinguished career over 20 years in the cement industry, and he's a passionate advocate for sustainability. Thomas, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for this introduction, and welcome everyone. Very happy to be here with you on to launch this innovation challenge. But first, let me tell you a few words on Innovandi on GCCA. So GCCA is basically the voice of the cement industry. We represent the global cement on concrete sector over the world. We are a CEO-led organization, and we operate in most of the countries of the world. I would parody and say the sunshine never stops on GCCA. The common denominator of our work, and you see that we are working with also national partners on different companies, is basically the sustainability. And if you go to the next slide, just to illustrate a few examples, we have launched in 2021 what we call the Concrete Future, which was the net zero roadmap for the cement and concrete industry. At the time, it was a cutting edge roadmap. It was the first time that the sector was coming together for such a decisive moment and proposing a real commitment on net zero by 2050. Quickly after, we launched our net zero accelerator, which was basically an exercise aiming at bringing the local players, our members on the pitch, bringing local actions and making sure that the roadmap, the global roadmaps, is work also at national levels. We have made a lot of progress since then, as we are covering about 70%, and we are active on doing roadmaps, covering about 70% of the global cement production outside China, on 80% if we have China, as we are a unique partnership with our Chinese colleague, and in particular the China Cement Association working with us on these things. GCC has 5 strategic pillars. The core of our activity is really about the net zero delivery, which is one of the biggest challenges of the industry. But we also work in promoting the essentiality of concrete. And concrete is an essential material for the world, you all know that. So innovation in that case is usually important for us. And if you go to the next slide, we actually have about a third of our activity that is strictly related to innovation and working on innovation. 30%, more than 30% of our resources working on innovation. And if you go to the next slide, we have essentially 3 platforms, 3 global platforms. The first one is what we call the Global GCC Research Network, right? This is a community of 450 scientists 80 PhDs working on close to 90 projects, 90 core projects, on partner projects, focusing on delivering innovation in the transition, in aspects that relates to transition. The second platform is about the Open Challenge. This is the work we are doing with you guys, and this is the work we are doing with the startups across the world, calling startups, and I'll come back on that, calling startups to actually bring their technologies to the industry and helping the industry to accelerate on the transition. The last platform is the most recent platform, is the Entrepreneur Network. You can also join us in the Entrepreneur Network. This is a small network of people working also on willing to meet the industry and have discussion on how to progress, how make things happen, etc. Essentially, we see innovation as fundamental for the transition. We think that the innovation will help us accelerate, facilitate, and reduce the cost of the transition. And that's why we are making this call today. If you go to the next slide. Paul, I'll let you introduce Karen.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas, for giving us that really important overview of why innovation is critical for the GCCA, and it will help us unlock, or help our members unlock, this net zero challenge and mission that we are on. We just have a short film from Karen Scrivener, who is professor at the EPFL and actually is chair of one of the Innovandi platforms, chair of the scientific committee. And we've worked with Karen for many years. She's a leading voice in terms of material science and in terms of sustainability. So if you just bear with us while we play this film, an important message from Karen.
As a child, I loved to build houses from Lego and to help my father, who built the house we lived in. I was also fascinated by the way the materials work. This led me to study materials science and then back to concrete. Concrete's a fascinating material, and we still have a lot to learn about how it works. Now I'm a professor and head of this laboratory of construction materials in the Institute of Materials Science and Engineering, EPFL, École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, in Switzerland. And we're pioneering the ways to reduce CO2 emissions from cement and concrete. We have to realize more than 90% of cement is used in emerging and developing countries. In the last 30 years, we've seen the way the use of cement in China has increased so dramatically, so that they now use more than half of all cement produced. India is a country of similar size to China, but it presently has a consumption 5 to 6 times lower. This represents a huge pent-up demand. In India, there's a massive need for affordable housing and infrastructure. It is estimated that more than 25 million new homes will be needed by 2030. Concrete is essential to meet this demand. But how can this be done without drastically increasing CO2 emissions? There's nothing that can replace concrete. It's an intrinsically low CO2 material. It only makes such an important contribution to CO2 emissions because we use such enormous amounts, more than all other materials put together. Many people here in Europe think that wood could be a solution, but even to replace just 1/4 of cement with timber, we would need to plant new and sustainable forest 1.5 times the size of India. Even 100 years ago in India, an institute was established to find alternatives to wood because it was already in short supply.
I will pass that back to you and ask you to talk a little bit about this Open Innovation Challenge and how people can sort of proceed through and what the process is for that. Thomas.
Sure, Paul, pleasure. I mean, we're opening the Open Challenge in Innovandi, and we are very happy to present you that for the one of you that might not know about that. So it's really a first of its kind industry accelerator. We really want to have a global reach, so I mean, everybody can really apply. We have a lot of expertise, of course, on the cement, on concrete industries. I mean, it's really about involving the industry and all what is about innovation around the value chain in the sector. We have launched this Open Challenge essentially for the development of the lower TRL innovation and to scale it up and to accelerate this technology. So it's really about making sure that you guys have the potential to test your technologies, to do pilot and to see and to fine tune how this will work in the future. We provide some support, some brain support, I want to say, intellectual support to help you progress, but also some funding support to actually make things happen. What do we bring in there? You have access to plants, lab, research facilities. You have access to the expertise of all our members. And even if they are not sitting in every discussion, they are involved at one point or another, and they will come to the discussion, whether they are big or small. And we are here also to support and to make sure that you move your ideas from prototype, from initial solution to pilot, to test it, and to bring the business case further. What is fundamental, and you will see later, you will have some opportunities to listen to some of our already startups or already materialized projects. The impact of going through is not only about the innovation, it's also about what it gives on your company as a whole, boosting your visibility on making sure you have further reach. If you go to the next line, we have the experience now with this over 3 years of discussion. I mean, on the first year in 2022, when we launched it for the first time, we ended up with 6 consortium signed, with very, very interesting progress overall. I mean, in the carbon capture, essentially, in the use of the material, really interesting stories. Also in 2023, it was more about the material and the low carbon material. We had very interesting discussion as well, very, very great solutions. And in 2024, we also have a very high quality of startup. I mean, we had 29 startups selected on shortlisted, and we will probably end up somewhere between 4 and 6 consortium also in 2024. So we are very much looking forward to have you guys. And with that, I am supposed to launch the Open Challenge with another movie, and I hope the movie will start.
Are you a startup working in new materials for cement and concrete? We're looking for you to apply to our 4th Innovandi Open Challenge for the opportunity to work with some of the largest cement companies in the world. The Innovandi Open Challenge is our unique industry accelerator, which partners the world's most exciting startups with GCCA member companies around the world to work together on developing, accelerating, and commercializing technologies to get to net zero. Concrete is the world's most used material after water, and it'll continue to be essential for global progress and for overcoming the challenges we face. And as cement and concrete are responsible for around 7% of global CO2, we're working hard to reach net zero by 2050. Innovation is crucial to achieving this mission. Through the Innovandi Open Challenge, startups will have the exciting opportunity to partner with our members, the world's leading cement and concrete producers, who'll provide the resources, expertise, and mentoring to develop, accelerate, and commercialize the most promising technologies. Now in our 4th year, we have seen several startups successfully partner with our members, taking forward a range of innovations such as carbon capture technologies, mineralization technologies, and low-carbon SCMs and activators. Every innovation counts, and we're committed to supporting these technologies to accelerate adoption. So if you're a startup working on new materials towards net zero concrete, apply now. This is your unique opportunity to help us build a more sustainable future.
I would hope that a webinar on innovation, we can get the technology to work, and thankfully that we did. So just to remind, this webinar is being recorded and we'll be uploading it to YouTube. So you can actually share this with colleagues that haven't been able to make it today. And just to remind as well, please do use the chat or Q&A function, and we've got a distinguished panel, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end to answer questions. Thomas, can I just ask you to walk us through the different phases of this open challenge, please?
Absolutely, Paul. So we have essentially 5 phases for this challenge. So we launched the challenge today on 20th of April, and we will have 2 months for application. So please submit your application, submit your project on your startup, on your technology within the next 2 months. We will close the submissions on the 20th of April this year. Then we will have a pre-selection phase. So you will always have a pre-selection of startup, a short list of startup with what we consider the most interesting technologies. Usually you saw last year about a third of the startups were selected on the total. And we will invite you for a pitch day on the 21st or the 22nd of May. So it's basically a moment where we will have the possibility to discuss with you. Devika will explain you that in more details when we are there, to explain your technology, to say what you want and what you expect clearly from the industry, a pilot, a test, whatever it is, but that's the opportunity to sell your technologies to the selection members. We will have then an onboarding, a selection on an onboarding of the startup to discuss where we can do, what we can do, and to build the consortium with you. And this will be a phase of 6 to 9 months of discussion. We are actually just concluding by now the one of last year. So it's really a done process. And we will work together after that. And you will have a demo day in June 2026, where we will demonstrate and show what we can do together and what is all about the innovation, what innovation is all about, right?
Thank you, Thomas. But it's worth repeating what the challenge is this year. It's all around the drive to net zero concrete.
So net zero concrete, yes, net zero concrete, low carbon or net zero concrete. This is the themes of this year.
Indeed, which we'll get to shortly. So next generation materials towards net zero concrete. So looking at low carbon admixtures, supplementary cementitious materials, so SCMs as we call it in our industry, or activators or binders. That's the challenge. That's this year's challenge. And I want to now pass over to my colleague who actually heads up the open challenge for us, Devika Wattle. Devika is by background is a chemical engineer. She's done lots of research work within different industries and engineering, including the oil and gas sector, and we're proud to call her a colleague. Devika, do you want to introduce, please, today's distinguished panel? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Warm welcome, everyone, and I am going to start introducing the panel. So the panel discussion today will focus on fostering innovation and building bridges for startup growth. The first member on the panel I have is Marcus Paul, who is the Open Innovation Project Manager with Bootsy. Marcus has a background in chemistry and works for the German cement and concrete producer Dykerhoff, which is a part of Italian Bootsy Group. His work is focused in the areas of R&D and quality assurance, and for the last few years, he's leading Bootsy's open innovation activities. Welcome, Marcus. Next, I have David Bangma, the Innovation Director for CRH, who has a background in chemical engineering with 25 years of experience in the industry across the commercial and manufacturing roles, both in cement and concrete, focusing in decarbonization. David drives innovation both internally and externally with CRH's Innovation and Ventures team looking for new technologies. Welcome, David. The third member on the panel I have is Shahrukh Shamim, who's the CEO and co-founder of NVCore. It's a Calgary-based company focusing on producing low-carbon SCMs to partially replace Portland cement in concrete mixes. He has a background of chemical engineering with experience in metallurgy and mining. The last one on the panel, I have David Gershlovitz, a CFO, CEO, and co-founder of Queen's Carbon. He has a background in electrical engineering and an MBA with 30 years of experience with business leadership and entrepreneurial experience. He's active investor in and consultant to early stage companies and serves as a board member for multiple entities. Welcome everyone, and let's start the panel. I am excited to see how we can engage and also at the same time inspire the startups who have joined us. So I'll start with you, Marcus. You have been with us since the first challenge way back in 2021 when we started, and you're a firm believer of open innovation and supporting and mentoring the startups irrespective of the TRLs. So tell us and share your experiences why innovation is critical and why it is critical for the industry to work with the startups and also to fine-tune these technologies.
Yeah, thank you, Devika. Yeah, it is really new challenges we are facing. You mentioned it already. We have to decarbonize our processes. That is done by looking for new ways or looking for ways in capturing the carbon dioxide from the processes, using the carbon dioxide, but also looking for so-called supplementary cementitious materials, SCMs. So we have a very highly skilled staff. We are very experienced, but it is, of course, now a new field of technology which we are not familiar with. And for that, we require the support of startups bringing to us their new ideas, which will help us in order to fulfill, say, the requirements for reaching the net zero emission target by 2050. Nice that you mentioned also the TRL, the technical readiness level, because we look at every startup, independent what the TRL is. I have an example. We look at a company called Cement with a quite low TRL. They're not very familiar with the production of cement, but their technology, their idea, producing cementitious materials in a low temperature process is a very revolutionary idea. So we're supporting them, for instance, by inviting them to us, to our laboratory facilities. Currently, they produce just a few grams of this material. We test it, and the results are quite promising. So we offer also our know-how in supporting, teaching, training these startups. On the other hand, as a second example, I would like to mention a carbon capture technology. It's the NUADA project. And that is what has been said already. It is actually a technology for capturing the carbon dioxide in the post-process combustion. And there are already existing technologies, just as the amine technology or the calcium looping you might be familiar with. But there's also this so-called MOF technology, the metal organic frame. And we test it currently at one of our Buzzi plants in Italy. The first results are very promising, very good capture rate, good purity of the carbon dioxide, which then could be further being processed, stored, or whatever. So our idea is supporting this just not only financially, but really, as it has been said already, offering our site, say offering our cement plant that you can test your technology, you can try your technology really on site. You go straight to the kiln, to the stack. You can take the exhaust gas and run your experiments there. We will provide you with our manpower. We'll give you the connections, we give you the piping, we give you the electricity and so on. And that is, of course, then being shared also with the other consortium partners. And so far, as you said, Devika, we do this for 3 years now, and it is really, really exciting to work in these projects.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. Very well said. And I agree with you. Every innovation counts. That's why we are looking at, every possible innovation that is out there. Next, moving on to David. David, you're one of David Bangma from CRH. I realize we have two Davids on the panel, so sorry for that. My next question is for David Bangma. David, you are one of the mentors from the challenge who are constantly encouraging startups and bridging the gap between the expectations of the industry as well as from expectation from startups. So, and every year we launch a challenge and we see the quality of startups improving every year. We have very clear ideas. We have very clear business models that we see. My question to you is, considering this year challenges on new materials, what will you do differently this year in judging the startups? I mean, we also keep evolving our judging criterias and what excites us as an industry. So do share your comments on that.
Okay, well, thank you for the question, Devika. I mean, I will say, yeah, I've been part of the Innovation Challenge for the last 2 years now, and I would say there's no doubt that I'm always, the last 2 years I've constantly surprised with the new technologies and the new ideas that are coming forward, and I have no doubt that in this year's challenge we'll be surprised again. Like, it's honestly what I find to be a very exciting process, right? We have big intakes. It's a little fast and furious, going through, all of the reviews and the encouraging of the various applications. But again, yes, always super impressed with, the level of innovation that we're seeing happening to try to, support our decarbonization transformation and help accelerate that. I really view this challenge as a potential win-win situation, so a chance to work with our industry. It gives us an opportunity to understand what's out there, and again, you'd think you wouldn't be surprised, but I find myself being surprised still with, what's out there, and gives obviously startups an opportunity to work with us and accelerate and get access to the way we think and some of the knowledge that we have. So to answer the question a little bit, what does success look like? So sort of some tips for people thinking about applying. I think one thing is to take the time to try to understand our industry a little bit so you can have a clear sort of, value proposition. It's clear, people who have some insight into our industry and some people who don't. So I think that's very important. It's also important to very clearly explain the differentiation in your technology. What is it that, we are a cost competitive business. So what is the differentiation that is creating, a future business model, let's say, right? So that's something that's important to clearly articulate. Don't underestimate the importance of scalability. We don't want technologies that work in one specific area. There has to be a certain level of scalability. So that's very important to articulate. And the last thing is I guess just on the scope. And how to sort of view this challenge, again, like it's an opportunity to engage with, the industry in itself. So view it as a doorway in, so the scope can be small as an initial project, but it's a stepping stone. And I think, there's some good examples, and we're probably going to hear from some of my startup friends here next, where that approach was what was undertaken, right? And these projects can lead into future collaborations within the industry. So that would be the last comment that I would make.
Thank you, David. Perfect, on point. Yes, we are looking at startups that can understand and have done some background work, also understanding the industry, and at the same time being flexible and using this as a door to enter into innovations. Moving quickly, I'm wary of time.
Devika, just before you move on, already questions are coming in. People are super keen to hear how they can enter, and indeed what the challenge is, and all about the owning the intellectual property rights. We will get to that later. So whilst the question goes on, I'm going to put on the QR code of how people can enter the challenge while you continue your discussion.
Thank you.
Please carry on.
Okay, thank you. Next question, I'll move to Shahrukh. Shahrukh, the question is for you. When you joined Open Challenge and you were already working with cement companies, your technology was slightly at a higher TRL than the others. And so you were already experienced, talking to cement companies, what they are looking at. And considering your consortium had like 9 cement companies as a part of your consortium, how did this help your own startup trajectory? As an NVCore, how did your NVCore projections and what do you think is the next step for NVCore?
Thanks a lot, Devika, for the question, and thanks a lot for having me. It's an honor for sure. And I think I'm joining, by the way, from province of Saraburi in Thailand, because we are running a pilot right now with a cement company here with Siam Cement Group, which I'll talk in detail later. But to answer your question, absolutely, like the journey of NVCore, especially before, I would call it like pre-GCCA and post-GCCA. I think it's pretty different and instrumental in our growth, where we are moving or heading, like in the direction perspective. The opportunities that we have received and created and presented, I think it has positioned NVCore to be actually a leader in SCM supply to construction industry, to cement producers, and potentially collaboration going on in the IP sharing and licensing opportunities as well. Especially like the pilot opportunities that we have received from companies or industry giants such as Heidelberg Materials, Siam Cement Group, CRH, and potentially with some other cement companies such as CSN. It's been very valuable because we have managed to actually achieve a lot of work, especially on the scalability side, in a relatively shorter amount of time, with again, considering that funding is a big kind of like constraint for startups in the early days. I think GCCA has enabled us to go from TRL 6 to TRL 7 or TRL 5 to TRL 7 in a relatively shorter amount of time with very like small amount of funds required. And I think it was mostly done because of NVCore's participation in GCCA, because we've been introduced to so many opportunities when it comes to like accessing the market, understanding what exactly is required, like talking about scalability, cost aspect, and then also like thinking about the overall carbon footprint of the product. So like I think this platform made us or enabled us to talk exactly that language which industry understands. So I think that was a big factor for NVCore. And talking about our future growth, obviously, like as a startup, we really want to scale up our technology to a commercial level. So right now we are actively working on building our first demonstration facility in Canada that would produce close to 200,000 metric tons of SCM on an annual basis. So, and I would definitely emphasize a really important aspect of this project is understanding the raw material supply, the logistics, and then potentially the compliance of material. And that actually we learned after like working with multiple GCCA members and understanding that each material has kind of like, again, its specific characteristics, and we need to be in a position that one technology can potentially repurpose different type of minerals into an SCM that is readily accepted in the industry. So I think it's been a great journey, and we are looking forward to, again, scaling up our technology with industry partners. Some of them are already present over here. And I think the future is definitely really bright for NVCore and for the construction industry, that's for sure.
Thank you, Shahrukh. Very well said. And yes, we are speaking the same language. That is the objective. That's what we want startups. And that's why we think that collaboration with the industry will definitely help. Congratulations and good luck. Good luck for your scale up. Moving on to the next one on the panel, David from Queen's Carbon. David, now your story is slightly different from NV Core. When you joined, your technology was new, the TRL was still, low. But you use this opportunity very well. You use the consortium as the sounding board, to get few essential answers to some of the questions of how to work with cement companies, or how to, have that right perspective or speak the same language with the industry. So tell us about how has this been helpful to you in seeking few opportunities that may not have existed before.
Yeah, thank you, Devika, and pleasure to be on with everybody. I only got into the cement and concrete world about 4 or 5 years ago, and this is a massive, essential global industry. And this is not a go-it-alone industry. So associations such as the GCCA and the opportunity to network is key as we try and figure out this exciting time, how to do what's next. So for us, we had technology at a university, and it was at a very, as Devika said, earlier stage. There had been a number of years of research, but the question was, okay, how do you take something that's been incubated at a university and launch it into the real world and get it started in this massive industry with players around the world, and again, an essential component of building. So the GCCA really opened up doors, and there's a lot of focus on the technical side, and that is essential. We got connection with multiple global players, including, mention them because they're on here, including Bootsy and CRH and multiple others, which helped us prioritize the technical aspects, both how things get tested, the materials, what's realistic in this industry, because if you can make it at the low scale, but you can't scale up, that's been mentioned a number of times, it's so key to understand you've got to make, the average cement plant makes thousands of tons of material a day. And most people have no idea what that really means. So it's got to scale up. But the other side so there's the technical side, but as we all hear about techno-economic analysis, this has to be economically viable. So for us, it was working on the technical side and getting the technical feedback, but at the same time, getting to network and learn from the business side. And of course, you'd hear both from the technical people and the connections with business people to say, okay, as you look at the technical side and scaling that, how does this work economically? And what does that mean? And somebody else mentioned raw materials, something as kind of seemingly simple as raw materials. Well, if you don't think about that in advance, you're sunk because your costs are going to be out of control. So we've got amazing direction, and we're lucky enough to form a consortium. But beyond the consortium, people such as Devika, such as Tomas, such as Paul have put us in contact with folks that help us refine what we're doing technically as we accelerate that, but also how do you think about the business model and how do you connect with folks, including how do we raise money? Because we're building real things. We need money to build those things. So the GCCA and our ability to say we're involved and that this is real has been key to us being able to both fundraise from investors as well as secure grant money. So it's been a critical part of what we're doing and gives the folks that we're talking to confidence that what we're working on is real versus, a lab experiment.
Thank you, Dave. That's perfectly said, Dave. I mean, yes, we need money. We need mentorship startups need mentorship at every level. It's just not the technology business model, understanding the business as well. So with that, just one final question to Dave and Shahrukh from the startups. What would be your 3 things that you would recommend the startups who are applying this year? 3 things to keep in mind.
Shahrukh, you want to go ahead?
Sure, definitely. I think for us, I think it's very important is to understand the market. And first of all, the differentiation is incredibly important. Like if you're coming up with a technology, you need to understand, again, how are you different from a pricing standpoint, from business model, as I know it was mentioned before, and also understanding like what's your beachhead, and are you targeting cement replacement? Are you targeting as an additive? So understanding where exactly the product fits in the overall kind of like puzzle, it's incredibly important. So I think that's first. And then secondly is technoeconomics. Like that's the key. If we are talking about cement, that is not exactly a high priced commodity. We're talking about 100 to 150 bucks a ton. We need to understand that if we are replacing that or presenting in alternate situations, pricing and understanding the scalability versus pricing curve, it's incredibly important. So that is the second one. And I think the third one is obviously like have champions. Like if you have champions in the industry that has kind of like understood your technology and there is a clear path to commercialization, I think that would be ideal to move forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Shahrukh. What are your comments, Dave? Any suggestions?
Yeah,
Pointers?
so yeah, number one, maybe this is my experience in startups in general, but this is a general thing, but I'll say for the folks that are here with a startup, be optimistic, move fast, don't be afraid when things don't work, just keep pushing forward. So resilience here. This is not an easy industry to innovate in, right? This basic process of making cement has been around for a long time, but it's a super exciting time because things are changing. So go in and be optimistic and push forward. Number two, this is the largest scale industry effectively in the world. I think in that video it said after water, concrete and cement are the number two man-made, number one man-made, number two used material. So you have to always think of scale. Even if you focusing on a niche, a small piece, it's going to be massive. So always think, how am I going to scale this? And how am I going to scale it economically? And the third thing is think through, okay, I might be operating in a small scale now, but how am I going to implement this? So for us, of course, connecting with the GCCA, our thought was we're going to partner with existing players and do this together. I think if you've got to think through, okay, I have a technology, how do I scale that? But even if I do scale it, how do I actually bring it to market? And is that through close partnerships with existing players? Is it through forming joint ventures? Is it through taking investments? You have to think, okay, how do I actually turn this into a real business? And we are looking to decarbonize, but this is a business. So the two are not in conflict. The two actually are symbiotic. You say, in order to scale decarbonization, you have to have a viable business and figure out how to push that forward.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you,
fantastic.
Dave.
And thank you to the panel, and thank you to Devika. That's a really good synthesis of both experience from member companies, cement companies, but also from those that have entered the challenge over previous years. I'm going to ask you to stay there, though. We're slightly sort of jiggling with time. We are going to continue the webinar, but just for those that do have to go now, I've frozen on this screen of what this year's challenge is. It's on next generation materials towards net zero concrete. So new binders and activators, so innovative admixtures, SCMs, clinkers, aggregates. The website is open. openchallenge@gcca.org is the email if you have any questions. And if you either use the QR code or the website of where you can enter. Just while we've got the panel on, because I think there's a rich discussion, we've got a question about sort of NDAs and who owns the intellectual property of the innovations that are presented. Does anybody want to pick that up?
Can I answer that one quickly? Yeah.
Cool.
So of the legal documents or the requirements that we already have them in place. So once a startup is done their pitch, the first pitch is done on the information that they can share. These are just the first pitch. And then we have, if the startup goes to the next round, we have all the legal documents that are in place. The IP, the intellectual property of the startup stays with the startup. So it does not transfer. So we have confidentiality agreement with the members and the NDAs with the startups. So no information is shared with anyone outside the GCCA family.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great. And a question to one of our member companies. I don't know who wants to pick this up, but why have we gone down the path of materials again? Why is this a topic that we're looking at again this year? Is that a question for David, perhaps, or Devika?
I can start. What we did is there was a thorough evaluation. So GCCA has a separate working group on innovation. And we had reached out to the working group. We had 5 to 6 topics that we had identified that we are going to, for the next year's challenge, these are the top 6 topics. And the topic that we selected for new materials was after a lot of due diligence from the members, their interest, and how we look at the landscape, and things might have changed in the last 2 years, and that's how we selected. But
clearly, I guess to answer it really succinctly, it's because our member companies want this addressed. They want fresh ideas. They want new innovations coming in, even though there's great innovation going on at a cement company basis. David, I can see you wanting to intervene, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say something really quickly. I mean, if you look at what's listed there, that's actually a very broad in scope, right? Admixtures, SCM, new clinker types, aggregates. So it has been 2 years, and it's a really fast. There's a lot of research. There's a lot happening in this space, and it's highly impactful space for what we do as an industry. So I would just, it was a vote, and there was a process, but just sort of supplementing with some comments there, because last year was more about CCUS, and so back to materials again, highly impactful and a lot of innovation happening. So again, would expect to be surprised and excited because of the amount that the level of movement.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, I'm going to keep pushing on. We've still got sort of 10 minutes left, but hopefully the central message about what the topic is this year and how you can enter as well as we move on to the startup experience. So you've heard, just in terms of our panel, a bit of experience, but we've also put together a little bit of a collection of a number of Innovandi participants over the course of the last year.
We saw it as a great opportunity to connect and network with and commercialize our technology with the consortium members from the GCCA here in the States and around the world. It's been a great experience so far, as we've learned a lot through this challenge, and we've also been connected with some of the best consortium members that are part of the GCCA that we look forward to testing and hopefully commercializing with now and in the near future. So what's next for us is that we're currently commercialized in the US, and we're looking forward to commercializing around the world.
The experience with Innovandi Open Challenge so far has been great. We have had loads of discussions with customers from the concrete and cement industry about our molecular sieving membranes and what they can do for point source carbon capture to decarbonize concrete and cement industry production.
Joining the Innovandi Open Challenge provided us unique access to experts from global cement companies that face similar challenges to achieve their net zero goals defined in the GCCA roadmap. We have already learned an incredible amount about how our solution could be implemented globally at a large scale.
What's next for a company? We're working with a number of different industrial segments to demonstrate how on-site modular-based carbon capture can scale to immediately help avoid the direct emission sources and make a big impact in the battle for climate change.
We joined the Innovandi Challenge because we felt our technology was a great fit with the cement industry, for the character and the magnitude of the associated emissions. We thought it would be a very effective way to meet the world's leading cement and concrete companies and explore the opportunity to deploy our technology and accelerate its application.
Joining Innovandi Open Challenge was a great opportunity for us to present our solution to cement industries and develop partnership with them to move towards a greener future.
With tens of thousands of products already in the field today, we at Ardent know that close collaboration with the end customer that will operate the assets is very important in order to develop an ideal solution. We saw Innovandi Open Challenge as an unparalleled opportunity to connect with the top cement players across the world and get those face-to-face conversations that will enable us to develop a solution that is perfectly suited to those specific customers.
Fantastic. So no reason at all why you cannot apply, having been inspired by some of those great messages. And you can see again the challenge on screen. So what we're not looking for, you hear what we're looking for in terms of, you know, next generation materials, in terms of admixtures, SCMs, etc., and all that detail is on the website. But this isn't a challenge around carbon capture technologies this year, or indeed kiln electrification, or indeed alternative fuels. If this technology isn't what you're working on, you can, though, of course, join the Innovandi Entrepreneur Network, which is an ongoing network whereby startups get the opportunity to integrate, speak to our members, join a number of webinars over the course of the year, but also put themselves in a shop window of all our GCCA members and all our ecosystem. So if it's not a perfect fit for you this year, do please also join the network. And I want to introduce Abdul Yerlan from Starters, who we're partnering with to help us really drive the key messaging and to reach out to startups across the world. Abdul is clearly a young business development manager from Starters, and his MA was in philosophy, and he uses that in terms of delivering critical thinking, which of course is absolutely required when organizations are innovating. Abdul, over to you just to give a short message.
Yes, thank you so much, Paul. I am thrilled to be speaking today at the event, and overall, we as Starters are honored to be supporting the Open Innovation Challenge of GCCA for the third year. This time, we are a company that connects great startups who are in attendance today with industry leaders, and we are a data-driven company. So as we can see on the next slide, we stand as a company on the data that we monitor. So today, when we were asked to deliver a little talk on the innovations in building materials, we thought to ourselves, what are the concrete details that we have in mind when we're talking about it? And as you can see here, what we have is an example of a recent study that we made analyzing some 2,100 startups all over the world. And here are just some indication of the main trends that we see developing in the field. The purpose of this slide is to remind ourselves that these terms that come up quite a lot are not just buzzwords, but have actual innovators and transformative technologies behind them that are propelling us all towards a sustainable net zero future. And going further, we can also see the allocation of trends. And here, besides the, of course, as often is the case, reigning artificial intelligence trend, we can see that other multiple trends present us with an overwhelming presence of the overall direction towards sustainability. So coming further, we see that also that the allocation geographically of the innovation that we're talking about is very diverse and fairly omnipresent. So my main point, which I'm coming to, is what is this a symptom of? And we believe at Stardust Insights that this is a symptom of convergence of two factors. So first of all, of course, the urgency that is dictated to us by reasons of things like climate change and environmental awareness. And second of all, the market demand for innovative technologies in building materials, especially in concrete and cement, since, as it was said repeatedly today, the just presence of this material in our lives is truly boundless. So we believe that Innovandi Challenge is a great representation of this transformative moment that brings together both the startups and the industry leaders, since both of them have everything to gain. And I thank the Association for continuous leadership in this topic, and of course, thank the startups for producing new solutions that drive us towards a world where concrete is not only a physical backbone of our infrastructure, but also a cornerstone of a net zero world. Thank you.
That's fantastic. And thank you so much for the partnership and your input there. So we do actually have to wrap up now. You can see on this slide, this is the key takeaway, the QR code, the website for how you can enter, the email address if you have any questions. We are recording this webinar. We'll insert the video from Karen Scrivener that we failed to play earlier. So when we put that up, you'll be able to actually see that, and we will be sharing that with all people today. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for bearing us in mind. Thank you for your patience. Thanks to all our amazing speakers and participants, and indeed all the people that have joined the Innovandi Challenge over the years. And we hope that you do to make this a successful Open Challenge for Open Challenge 2025. Thanks ever so much for joining us here today. And we'll close there. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, yes, we